Hello?
Yes.
Lawrence, is my sound better?
Yeah, that's better, but there is interference with someone nearby. Let them away from close to you so that there is no sound bouncing.
Okay, I have turned off the other. So I will be using this laptop. I think it's better.
Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen with us, I would like to take this point to welcome you. Those in GMT time, good evening. Those from the Canada space, good morning. We welcome you to this webinar that is organized by WUSC and the partners in Uganda, where we are taking it a time to discuss the theme for the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, 2023, which is organized under the theme Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls. My name as your host is Sengendo Lawrence, and I am the programs manager for Africa Agribusiness Academy. For people joining us, we have a globe on your screen on the menu for Zoom. Under that, you will be able to get the interpretation of the French language for those who listen to French, and then those for English can also be able to get the interpretation that they require in the language that they can hear very well. We'll also be able to use the Q&A section to hear in from you in any of the questions that you may have. So today with me, I have got 4 panelists who are from Mifumi, which is a partner organization in Uganda, SEPAD West Nile, You Will, and Siwen. But before we begin, we'd like to have welcome remarks from WUSC, who are our hosts today in Uganda. So we'd like to entertain Rose or Alice to give opening remarks from the WUSC side. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making our time to join in this panel discussion as we join the rest of the world to commemorate the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Rose could have, Rose is on the way, so she's having a little bit of challenge with network, but she will join along the way. So on behalf of WUSC, I take this opportunity to welcome you all and say thank you so much for taking out time to join in this discussion. Just a little bit about WUSC in Uganda. WUSC in Uganda started work in 2018 with the Student Refugee Program. But specifically for the Ignite project, WUSC has done this since 2020 when we started the project in Uganda. So we are close to 4 years of Ignite implementation in Uganda. And so far we've been blessed to work with very great partners. We currently are working with 14 partners, mainly in Kampala, Wakiso, and Arua. And these partners were actually selected basing on the thematic areas of focus in the Ignite project. So we are so grateful for the work that our volunteers have done so far with the partners. And as we move on with the 16 days, we all know that these days started on the 25th of November, and we will go through up to the 10th of December. as we commemorate these days, I will encourage you to keep following our partners because they still have more activities that they will be doing in commemoration of these days. So please look out for all these wonderful partners and the great contributions that they are making to end and eliminate gender-based violence in Uganda. So more activities are still going on even after this webinar. We will encourage you to continue following our partners. So with this said and done, I will invite Mel to give us the opening remarks for this webinar. Thank you so much.
Yes, Alice, thank you. I don't know if Mel, you're with us. Please could proceed to give the WUSC opening remarks.
Oh, Mel says she's in, but she cannot unmute. So Mel, I don't know whether we can proceed, then you give the remarks later, or can the team help you to unmute your mic?
Yeah, I think she could have joined from another panel's link.
Oh yeah, so she's requesting the team to help her and okay, yeah, to undo her mic.
Okay. Okay, so as she comes up, you do realize that following this year's theme, it's found important that different organizations, different actors need to find a way in which they can invest to ensure that we reduce violence against women and girls, as it is an important one to achieving the strategic development goals, which are what, as different organizations, as different actors working in the different thematic areas working, is a focus that we contribute to. And we as organizations found it important together with WUSC, which is our binding partner, to ensure that we coordinate and take part in the 16 days of activism. And as she comes, of course, for us here in Uganda, we will be, as different organizations, holding sessions that are organizational, that are community-based, and holding sessions of some organizations with visit communities. And all of this is important towards ensuring that we share messages, that we talk to different communities, and ensure that we make them aware of how it is important to coordinate at every level to do the different work that is being done with the main purpose of ensuring that gender-based violence ends, and ensuring that the negatives that it brings up, what if negative impact it makes to the world, it makes contributions in the GDP are affected. It is believed that in some there is a research that was done in Uganda by FAO that says that in having inclusive environments for women would add to agricultural production field 30% in years. So you do find why it's important to be inclusive in terms of ensuring that women and girls as well can participate, and as well as ensure that we eliminate gender-based violence against women and girls. I don't know, as Mel is preparing herself, I would like us to just take a round of, I'm going to request the panelists today to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Lucy. You introduce yourself, your organization, and then we will then have Topista introduce herself, and then Joel, and then Hadija, and then we will see how to proceed. Please, Lucy, introduce yourself to the people joining the webinar today.
Good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucy Mary Atieno. I am the Monitoring, Evaluation and Research Manager here at MIFUMI, a women's rights organization. Thank you.
Okay. Topista, you can proceed to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm called Onzia Topista. I'm the Executive Director of CEPAD West Nile, based in Arua, Uganda. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to invite Joel as well.
Very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to the team. My name is Joel Chivenge. I'm the head of programs and the deputy executive director at Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association Limited. I'm glad to be part of this session. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'd like to proceed to Hadija.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Hadija Nankanja, and I lead the team at Community Women's Enterprise Network. We are an enterprise support organization based here in Kampala. So happy to be part of the panel. Thank you very much.
All right. I would like, of course, to thank everyone of our panelists for taking time to be part of this webinar. For the people who have just joined, we have got a Q&A icon on the menu. Please, it is where you can type in any questions that you will have for our panelists. And then we have got a globe icon, which you can click on to get both English and French interpretation, so that you can be able to understand very well what is happening in the sessions. And we are happy to have you and appreciate you for taking your time. So in this regard, without wasting time, I think we are going to invite Lucy Atieno to share about the work that MIFUMI is doing and how it associates and supports the reduction of gender-based violence in the community, as well as in the Uganda as a country. Okay, so I think before we get her, let's first have Mel deliver the message on behalf of WUSC, and then we'll proceed to MIFUMI. Mel, please.
Great. Hi, Lawrence. Great. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all on the call today. So on behalf of WUSC's Volunteer Cooperation Project, which is funded by Global Affairs Canada, I'm really pleased to be with you today. My name is Mel Godwalt, and I'm the Planning, Performance, and Learning Manager for the Volunteer Cooperation Project. I've met quite a few of you on the call, I guess it's about 2 years back. So I'm really pleased to be joining you today. As we know, the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence is recognized annually from November 25th to December 10th. But I'd like to add that a lot of our partners in Uganda and our partners globally are working on gender-based violence and advancing gender equality year-round. This year's theme globally is to unite to end violence against women. And that campaign is an effort to prevent and eliminate violence against women and girls around the world. I love the theme of our webinar, which is Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls. With this panel discussion, we want to recognize and appreciate all of the efforts of our partners year-round, and especially this time of year, as well as the efforts of our volunteers and our staff in Uganda, and our staff globally in terms of their initiatives to address gender-based violence. And I also want to thank all of you for being here today. Finally, before we hand over to the panelists, I would ask all of us to remember that globally, studies show that 1 in 3 women have experienced gender-based violence. and that, you know, discussions like this can be difficult for all of us. And I would also emphasize that each of us has a responsibility for addressing gender-based violence in any and all capacities, and that we all are working towards a world where women and girls are free from gender-based violence. So thanks very much. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and Lawrence, I'll hand it back to you. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Mel. And of course, I'd just like to take a peek from what Mel has said. The 16 days of activism, 25th to 10th December, 25th November to 10th December is a time when we take it as special. But of course, throughout the year, it's important that we continue to behave and ensure that we are doing everything we can to ensure that we reduce gender-based violence. So without wasting time, please, I would like to invite Lucy Asieno to give the presentation on behalf of MIFUMI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon once again, or good morning. My name is Lucy Mary Athieno. I am the Monitoring, Evaluation and Research Manager here at MIFUMI. MIFUMI is a women's rights organization that was established in 1997 with a motive to tackle barriers that lead to gender-based violence, you know, here. And that started in the village called MIFUMI, and that's how we derive our name, MIFUMI. Next. Next slide, please. So this is what I was explaining. So our mission is to just ensure that we're ending violence against women and girls. So the key principles that MIFUMI works towards achieving are ensuring that survivors are getting support, effective support, right from when they report a case to when they receive justice on that case, but also empowering communities to foster a protective environment for the woman or girl or boy who's suffering violence. So the community should bear the burden of violence. And then our third principle is perpetrators or offenders should be held accountable for the violence they commit. Okay, for the violence they commit in the community. So our approach is we try to empower women. So women's empowerment is one of the key things that we focus on. And women's empowerment does not mean economic empowerment. Like our ED always says, it means a holistic approach towards her empowerment. That includes economic, includes her confidence, includes her esteem, it includes the thing that will make her feel her self-worth. We also focus on building a championship movement in the community. And these will help us try and address the drivers at the community level. So building a base of a movement that are going to reject violence at every single stage is one of our approaches. And then focusing on our theory of change, which focuses on ensuring that the survivor leaves our space better than she came. So this is our pathway. So one of the key pathways are support to the survivors. It's very, very critical that when the survivor comes, our focus is supporting the survivor. And for us as MIFUMI, we believe the woman's story. So once a survivor walks into our space, we believe her story. So while we understand how the case is going, we don't judge her once she walks into our space. And then we focus on the women-centered approach, which has a lot of non-discrimination, you know, safety, protection, to ensure that the survivor is actually receiving justice in a very safe space. But to also work with the community to ensure we are lobbying the district leaders, the government, to ensure that there's legislative change. One of the things that MIFUMI is known for in Uganda is campaigns. And one of our campaigns we're very proud of is the bride price campaign. So MIFUMI took the government to court and we're tackling bride price, which is a harmful practice that the bride has to be paid for before she gets married. And that has seen a lot of increase in child marriage and a lot of other, you know, forms of violence. So we focus on legislation very, very keenly. And then we connect with the local leaders right from the grassroots level to ensure that they are actually engaged in conversation that affect their community. So we work with the community champions, we work with the local council leaders, we work with the women's groups, we work with the religious leaders, clan leaders, everybody that can contribute to a change is what we focus on. The next. So these are some of our innovative approaches that we as Mifumi have done to ensure ending violence against women and girls. One of them is the shelters. Shelter is a safe space. The gender-based violence shelter is a safe space where survivors who experience violence can access temporary accommodation while their case is being handled. So they receive a lot of counseling, legal advice, support. We engage them in skilling, they do activities at home. So that's one of our Mifumi innovations. And one of the, Mifumi was the first organization to set up a shelter here in Uganda. So Mifumi's shelter, which is in Tororo, is one that is used by the government, by organizations to learn about shelters. We run 3 shelters across Uganda currently. But we also have what we call the advice centers. Advice centers are local in the communities where the survivor can walk in and get information, get advice. She's handheld to go for a service. Because many times here in Uganda, people fear to go and report a case to police, and they have their basic reasons. So we offer this safe space, which is a women's only space, for them to come and report the kind of abuse they are going through, and they get support. The next. So addressing violence, what's our call to action as Mifumi? So first of all, some statistics. 51% of women who are partners in Uganda have experienced violence. So those between the age of 15 and 19 have experienced violence. And 55% of those have faced sexual violence. You see, now you can imagine 31% enduring the violence they're going through. From a non-intimate partner violence, could be along the road, could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, you see. So, but also there's a lot of teenage pregnancy. 23% of the girls, there's teenage pregnancy, and the statistics are 23%, 23 to 25%. So you can imagine out of every 100 girls, 25 are pregnant before the age of 19. So you can imagine that 15% of the girls get married before the age of 15. Those are just babies. So the challenges in advocating for this space is shrinking. There's a lot of backlash in the communities. You hear statements like, why do you only talk about women? Even men face violence. So you experience violence, so see that space is shrinking. And some of the harmful practices in the communities that exist, like bride price, still perpetuate gender-based violence. A neighbor will say, I have some 2 goats. I would like my son to marry your daughter. The girls are getting married because of such cultures. So anti-women rights actors is another challenge. But what is the call to action that we are saying? One, we're saying the Minister of Gender. To the Minister of Gender, there can be a task force to improve on policies, that promote prevention and response to gender-based violence that the women and the girls go through. And the other, into the health sector. Are we able to train health workers, to handle survivors of GBV? Most times the survivor can walk to a health center, but the healthcare worker is not even trained. So they can't listen to the story. They're finishing, hurry up. Tell me, where did they beat you? Quickly, hurry up. So they don't know how to handle the survivor. Are they counseling her? Are they considering privacy, confidentiality things? So if you can have the health workers trained, to the justice, the jailers, we're saying, can we have specialized courts to just hear the cases, of violence against women and girls? Because the justice system can get overwhelmed, but can we have a specialized court where today they're just going to hear cases on violence against women and girls, so that we're having the perpetrators are accountable, really, but also training the officers in court to handle the cases well. Sometimes you walk to a police station or court, and you find the women are sitting in one space. The officer is asking us, so what happened? No confidentiality, no privacy. So can we have these trainings for these officers? And to the local government, we're also trying to advocate and say, can we have gender equity budgeting? So when they're doing the plans at the district level, are they considering to say, we're going to plan to ensure that police form 3s are there at every police post, to ensure that when survivors walk in there, they are not asked money to go and bring a police form 3 to do a medical examination. And then to the public, we're saying, can they speak out to reject violence at every single level? Can they speak out to reject violence? Can they demand protection from police? And this is one of the things we as Mifumi do, but we want the government to take this because it's more sustainable when the government is involved. And then to the media, are we having media publish information and content on ending violence against women? Because then that will push the message, further. Next. So thank you very much. My name is Lucy Mary Atieno. So no matter the question, there is no violence. And violence is not the answer. So if you're suffering violence and you're here in Uganda, we have a toll-free number that is very confidential. It has legal advice information, and it is 0800 200 250. So do not suffer in silence. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Lucy, for the good presentation. And then I'd like to request you to type the number in the chat box for those who may be in and around Uganda. And we appreciate Mifumi and the great work that you're doing. Those, of course, who may have any questions for Lucy, we have got a Q&A section in our menu. Please type the questions there, and then we will be able to get the questions back to Lucy for you to get your response. So at this time, I'd like to invite Hadija from Community Women's Enterprise Network to share with us the work they are doing and how it affects the reduction of gender-based violence. Over to you, Hadija.
Afternoon, good morning, good evening once again.
Hadija, we are not hearing you.
Hadija, we can't hear you.
Yes, Hadija, I don't know whether it is a challenge of your device, but we are not hearing you.
Maybe as she gets around the challenge, the next presenter could go in.
Okay, so Hadija, as you possibly handle through your challenge, we are going to go ahead and invite you will and invite Joel Chivenge from the will to proceed with what you will is doing and how it affects gender based violence. Joel?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lawrence and Tim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Your will is the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association Limited. That was started in 1987 to empower women entrepreneurs in Uganda. Got the next slide. go to the no, the first one. There is one before that. Good. So in my presentation, we shall have the introduction, understanding of GBV, WUSC GBV combat strategies, WUSC secretariat initiatives, collaborative efforts with partners, male engagement strategy, and the importance of involving men in the GBV. Continue. Next slide. Yes, like I said, UWIL was started in 1997 to empower women on 3 core programs. That is capacity building, networking, and advocacy. Our vision is that we envisage a wealthy woman creating to the growth and development of the economy. Then our mission is to empower.
Joel, could you turn on your video so that the people can see who is talking to them? Thank you.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. So I was telling you that we have 3 core principles upon which UWIL was started. And the first one is capacity building. The second one is networking. And the third one is advocacy. Our vision is that we envisage a wealthy woman contributing to the growth and development of an economy. Then our mission still fits within the pillars of its inception, that is empowering women entrepreneurs for wealth creation through capacity building, through networking, and through advocacy. Since UWIL's inception, we have impacted over 4.7 million women. Next. Next. Oh, excuse me. Yes. So understanding gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is a harmful act targeting individuals based on their gender, disproportionately affecting women and girls in this context. There are several types and forms, but that stem from physical, sexual, psychological, and economic violence, among others. Some of the impact or the negative impact of the GBV, there is a physical health impact. There is the impact on the mental well-being, and also the social connections and the economic instability that come with what? GBV. Next. Yeah, so when you start slide, you realize that as an institution, through capacity building, we normally conduct breakfast meetings. We do business mentorship. We provide business development services. But as we provide these services and as we extend these services to women, they are empowered on how to run their businesses in a smooth way, because we give them the information that is required. And as they get wealthy, or as they improve on their economic conditions, they are able to fight and or resist gender-based violence. Then through networking opportunities, we normally organize business engagements, trade fair initiatives as ways of market linkages. Now through this, women are able to buy from each other or to trade within amongst themselves, and they uplift themselves. And still, as they get economically well, they are able to fight against GBV. Through advocacy, this is where we create an enabling environment for women to be able to trade in a conducive environment. Continue. Yeah, so at the secretariat level, we are addressing GBV through policies. You realize that we have different safeguarding policies that stem from gender policy, whistleblower policy, advocacy and communication strategy, and zero tolerance for sexual harassment, exploitation, and abuse. So every member of staff is supposed to sign these documents as annexes to their job description, to their job contract, and so that we are able, so that just in case something happens to a fellow staff, we refer to the manuals that the staff sign, because each of these manuals are embedded ways of fighting gender-based violence. Continue. Yes, with partners, you realize that we have partnership with CARE Uganda. I'll single out CARE for now because we've been so active with the program called, with the project called the DREAMS Project, which stands for Deliver Women's Economic Resilience Through Enterprise and Market Systems. So, yeah, so with CARE, we are addressing gender norms, harmful gender norms, where men think that women are not supposed to own land. So here we are tackling it in a way that we are using household dialogues where we bring men on board and talk to them and tell them that it is not bad or it is not wrong for women to own land, and also it is not wrong for women to own their own what? Their own finances. Still through CARE International Uganda, we are addressing the gender digital gap, where we are still, where we are approaching it through household dialogues to ensure that women have access to mobile cell phones, because with time we envisage linking these women to institutions that can give them affordable credit using their phones and using their national identities as collateral, since a few of them own collateral like land. So we also provide for safe spaces like child care centers for our beneficiaries of the project, and also for fellow staff, where if a lady has a child or a breastfeeding child, that lady is entitled to come with that child at the workplace. We give them breastfeeding spaces where they can step out of maybe an activity and they breastfeed their children. Through that, also ensure that the maids or their house help get an allowance during the trainings when they come with the children of their masters. Continue. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you so much. So the male engagement structure, you realize that at the secretariat, we have the male incorporated in the staffing of UWIL, because previously UWIL never used to employ the male, but I'm a living testimony because I'm employed there in a high position. So they have incorporated men into the secretariat to support women in the achievement of the business development services, and as a way of making ensure that they contribute to the UWIL's vision of the women empowerment. We have integration of the male in the DREAMS project under CARE, where a certain percentage of men are supposed to benefit from the DREAMS project. Yeah, because DREAMS on the surface, it appears to be a women project only. Read it deeper, you realize that a percentage of men, that is 30%, are supposed to be brought on board to benefit from the project. Yeah, so even through this, we identified the role model men that act as ambassadors to fight GBV. Then we also engage the community through both men and women, and ensure that we move our projects and our programs together as you will, because we realize that women cannot trade alone. An example to this is the ISOCO digital marketing platform, which was previously made for women, but later we opened up to men that they can also post their items on that digital platform, because women cannot trade alone, or women cannot trade in isolation of men. Continue. Thank you. Yeah, so what is the importance of involving men in the GBV mitigation? One, through this, we shall be achieving, or we normally achieve, cultural transformation from the traditional culture to the modern culture, where men and women have equal rights. The second one is that we achieve positive role modeling for both men and women into our programming and also in the society. Then there is also that broader community impact, where men get actively involved in women activities, because previously, whatever we used to be for women, men wouldn't join, but here we encourage them to join, including voluntary village savings and loans association and other circles. It also enables us to promote policy and institutional change, where we advocate for workspaces for women, where we take into account of the male gender and his importance, because if you empower a woman only and you leave the man at the back of the empowerment, you realize that there will be friction. When the woman start earning money, there will be some kind of jealousy. So there is that change that we are trying to achieve. Then it also enables us to provide support for survivors and empowering men as allies in the fight against the gender-based violence. Next. Yes, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so we thank you so much for the good work that you're doing, and we do of course respect and understand the engagement that you're doing that is related to the business cases and the engagement of men to ensure that there is a reduction of gender-based violence and to ensure that the projects can proceed. I do not know whether Hadija you're back so that we could go through the work that Community Women Entrepreneurs Network is doing before we go to Sion, to Sepad. Hadija? Okay. I don't know if Hadija is back and she could go through the slides. Yes, of course, I understand. We have some comments of someone saying the introductory sessions are too long, but of course, we are on our third panelist, and we do believe that we can be able to complete in time. So I think in this regard, we would like to then proceed to the presentation by Sepad. So we'd like to invite Officer Topista to share with us about their work and how they are relating to reduction of gender-based violence in communities, and they do tackle a special community section of refugees. So please stay with us and hear from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, and thank you, guests on the call. Once again, I'm Onzia Topista. I work with Community Empowerment for Peace and Development West Nile as the Executive Director. And this year, as we commemorate the 16 Days of Activism against women and girls, we say we are uniting and investing to prevent violence against women and girls. So SEPAD is a women-founded, women-led nonprofit organization that works to resist violence and transform conflicts and build peace in communities. We are based in West Nile, and in 2021, we became a partner with the WUSC Uganda under the Ignite program and the volunteer cooperation. And I must say that this partnership has greatly contributed to improving our systems and support from the volunteers. We've so far received 3 volunteers. Our first volunteer was a student volunteer from Canada during COVID and was working remotely. And then we had a national volunteer. And now we have a volunteer from Canada who is supporting us in environment as Environment and Climate Change Advisor. So SEPAD works in West Nile, which is a region that hosts quite a big number of refugees. Our interventions are majorly on promoting peaceful coexistence, prevention and response to GBV, SR, sexual reproductive health and menstrual health management, and empowerment of women, girls, and the youth. Our work majorly targets the girls, but our approach is gender inclusive. Next slide. So I will be sharing with you the perspective of GBV interventions in the refugee settlements within West Nile, and in West Nile or across Uganda, but in West Nile particularly, the GBV is a subsector of the protection sector. That is coordinated by the Office of the Prime Minister, who is the Refugee Protection Coordinating Government Wing, together with the UNHCR, that is United Nations High Commission for Refugees, and the local government districts. And then we have Danish Refugee Council that is the lead partner that coordinates all the other partners as an IP of UNHCR. So we have a monthly coordination structure that we meet to harmonize our strategies, our work tools, the challenges, and generate synergies to maximize our efforts in the fight against GBV. And we have a clear referral pathway that is disseminated down to the last persons, forcefully displaced persons. And we have also a central information management system that is managed by UNHCR, and all partners feed their information on the cases of GBV or on the work of GBV that they do, which is consolidated by UNHCR and then shared to the partners, to the government, locally, but also nationally to the ministry as well. And this dashboard is accessible on the UNHCR portal by anyone. And among the cases of GBV, of course, we have various kinds of GBV, but the most common in the settlements is emotional GBV, intimate partner violence, and physical violence. And in 2022 alone, across the settlements in Uganda, 4,513 cases were reported by UNHCR, and of these, the bigger percentage were women and girls. Now, it is important to note that when we receive a case, there could be 2 other cases that were not reported. So these are the people who have gathered the energy amidst the stigma to be able to report on the case, on the violence they experience. But it means that there could be double cases, because almost the same number have not reported. Next slide, please. So what is it that we do as CEPAD in our efforts? We do both prevention and response, and we use different approaches, some of which have been already alluded by the other speakers. First is the WILI approach, Women Lead in Emergency approach, where women are organized in groups of about 30 to 40, and they are trained on concepts of GBV, on the women's rights, human rights, and leadership, and how they can be able to speak out on issues affecting them, but also how they can be able to participate in leadership and decision-making spaces. And so they meet on a regular basis and also support each other in issues of GBV that they experience in their homes. And these women are also supported with the small income generated activities support that they are able to, provide for themselves. Then we have the Girls Shine methodology, which targets adolescent girls, especially school-going girls, with a similar strategy as the WILI. The girls are also trained on concepts of GBV, on sexual reproductive health, on menstrual health, and self-assertion, visioning. And so these girls are expected to talk to their fellow girls peer-to-peer and help them to be assertive and to fight any violence and report any violence within their families and their communities. And then we use also the role model men methodology approach, which looks at, identifies men who promote positive masculinity in their communities, and they are equipped to support other men in their communities to also appreciate the gender. But these are men who work together with their women, who contribute to the development and to the empowerment of their women. They support them economically, they support their ideas, they allow them to engage in other community activities, including leadership. And their girls, also their voices for girls to go to school. So those are the three approaches that we use to prevent GBV. Now, when it comes to, next slide, when it comes, those are some of the pictures of the people we work with. The girls are visioning and the support to girls in schools to have menstrual hubs in their school, and the women leading emergencies also doing their crafts as a way of making some money. Next. So what do we do? How is the case management or the response done? So we of course, when we do the prevention, there is still cases that occur, and we receive and register these cases. We provide immediate counseling and psychological support to the survivors. Of course, our interventions are survivor-centered. And then we guide the survivors on decisions that they can make to either decide to report the case or not, but depending on how the violence is. For example, if it is a rape case by an unknown person, we usually guide the survivor that the survivor needs to go to a health facility and get treatment, get preventive medication. And sometimes survivors can be stubborn or they can be reluctant, and so you have to guide them. Of course, but they have to give their consent. But when there is a minor involved, then we have to involve the family and also sometimes take some actions that may not be in their will, but we have to, because we have to save the minor. And then we provide material support. For example, if a survivor has faced physical injuries and is not able to do the work she usually does, and then we provide that support. And then we make referrals to the partners, to the health, to the police, to schools, to the education, and then to the livelihood partners, so that the survivors are able to get the support they need. and they are able to also get over the violence. And then we make follow up with the survivors to ensure that they have received justice. Because sometimes the justice system is very slow, and so we make close follow-up to ensure that they receive justice. And sometimes we bring the court to the settlement because the settlement is a little bit far from the city center or where the court is. So we bring the court to the settlement where they are able to hear as many cases, because it's very difficult transporting survivors and witnesses and the others to the court. Next. So those are some of the challenges that we face: high expectations from survivors, concealing of information by leaders. There are cases of GBV, but the leaders would not report it because they feel they can handle it and clearly it is beyond them. Delay in response to referrals made. When a referral is being made and then the partner to whom or the police take their time to respond, and then sometimes the perpetrators are released from the police on police bond, and this really demoralizes the survivors and people to report. They feel justice is not being offered. And then we have harmful traditional practices like early marriages, which is a tradition, but it is against the law and also against the girl child. Poor reporting, especially by the men. Very many men do not report violence that is perpetrated against them, and yet there are so many men that suffer violence. And then the men have complained that they need to be involved more in the fight against GBV, and so and also there is poor implementation of policies which are available. Uganda has so many policy frameworks, but the implementation is not up to standard. Lastly, I want to speak to the investments that we need to do on the next slide, that we need to invest in education, because an educated and civilized community is able to minimize GBV. And then invest in skills development for both the men and women and girls to improve livelihood, because economic violence is also another form of violence which is so much experienced. And then deliberate support to the boy child, and then creating more women's safe spaces to facilitate learning and sharing, and advocacy for positive cultural practices, and investment in the health of women. So many women suffer because they cannot get the health services they need as women, and there is no specialist, the facility doesn't have the equipment to support them. And then we need to invest in women's participation in leadership, as they can be very big contributors to community development. I think those are some of the investments. I would wish to stop there. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Lawrence.
Yes, thanks so much, Topista, and everyone on the panelists for the good work that you're doing, and for taking time to talk with us. Now, on this regard, we would like to proceed to the questions that have been shared by the participants, and then we see how to proceed. But thank you so much, everyone, for the presentation. Now, we have, of course, the first question to us saying, from Emmanuel Adio Dennis, saying, how can we strengthen law enforcement and legal mechanisms to better combat GBV? And this question is going to Mifumi, to Lucy from Mifumi. And then there's a question of someone asking to know whether Mifumi is doing some work in West Nile. And then we also have Godfrey Mpande asking about how are the efforts to bring perpetrators to justice, help introduce GBV, and is the principle accompanied by some awareness work? So I would like to Lucy to take some time and respond to these questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very great questions. The first one is how can we strengthen the law enforcement? So one of the things, so what Mifumi does to strengthen the law enforcement, one of them is trainings. We work a lot in a multi-sectoral, approach. We work with the different stakeholders that are involved in ensuring survivors access justice. So we have the police, we have the courts, we have both the informal and informal sector to ensure they actually understand, the challenges the survivors go through and what they can do. But also we do a lot of partnership work to ensure that the services offered by other partners complement each other, to ensuring we are enabling survivors to access justice, but also we try and link both the formal and informal sector, because there are very many cases that are handled by the informal sector. The LCs, the religious leaders will handle cases. So what we do is we try and link, how do you have the formal sector, which is the LC1, LC1s are local council courts, how do you have the formal magistrate courts, how do you link them with the informal system, who are handling a lot of cases in the community? So training them working together, they have a partnership, all contributing to ensure that the survivor is accessing justice. The other thing, the other question is, how do you have a branch in West Nile? Not yet, but we are hoping to come to West Nile very soon. However, if there's any survivor experiencing violence, you have partners, you could call the toll-free number that I put on the chat. We can still give support to the survivor even in West Nile through the toll-free number that I mentioned. How are the efforts to bring perpetrators to justice, helping to reduce GBV? So we try and do a community approach. Like I mentioned, that our principle is we want to ensure that the community bears the burden of violence and not the survivor. Because many times when a violence happens, it's the survivor who bears the burden. She'll bear the burden of transport to go and report the case. She'll bear the burden of going to transport herself with the medical examination. She'll bear the burden of, witnesses, supporting the witness process. She'll bear all that burden. So we're saying that should be borne by the community. So the community awareness sessions that we do contribute a lot. And some of the examples are in Kalangala, one of the districts in the island. There's a community action just last week. There was a defilement case that happened. A man defiled a 3-year-old girl. The community arrested this man, took him to police by themselves. By the time police contacted and said, oh, Mifumi, there's this case that the community leaders have arrested the perpetrator, we're like, wow, this is local activism we're talking about. And we're seeing action, happening. Another one was in Namayingo, one of the districts in Eastern Uganda. There was a child marriage that happened. The champions, the local leaders went and organized themselves and went and picked this girl. She was 16 years, brought her back, and arrested the perpetrator. So one of the things we see that when these community actions start taking place, local activism, the community taking ownership, that already enables the sustainability and to help, with these. I see another question to Mifumi, how does the community bear the burden of violence? How does the community bear the burden of violence? We're transferring to the community that when a violence happens, the community should ensure the perpetrator is accountable. Number one, not hiding the perpetrator, because more time when a crime happens, the perpetrators are hidden. They're not reporting the case first of all, and then they're not producing the perpetrator. They're hiding them in their homes, so they can bear that burden by first of all reporting and ensuring these perpetrators are available so that he is held accountable. But also they coming out as a community to saying we are rejecting violence in our community. We are not going to accept child marriage in our community. We are not accepting the girls getting pregnant because of bride price. Rejecting that is already a burden that the community is working on. Then the other question was, I think this was to SEPAD, but I could add maybe SEPAD will contribute. How do you bring the court? So one of the things MIFUMI does is the legal aid clinics. Legal aid clinics we organize with the JLO system, and then we take them to the community. So the community members can now access the legal officers. Sometimes we go with the resident state attorney, we go with the magistrate to educate the community. Some of these community members fear to go and witness cases in court. So they go and give the information right from the source, the people who handle these cases in court. So that is what we do as MIFUMI. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Now, of course, we have, we'll invite Topisica. Number one, there was a question on how do you take the court system to the community, and then they were asking whether you have a legal component as well in your work. And then there is a question on the support you're doing, CPAD is doing to women and girls, on how you keep their confidentiality, but maintain a better relationship with them for them to become your ambassadors in the community. And then, so I'd like at least CPAD to engage on that, and then we'll answer the other question as the general one. But of course, there was a question asking about how the efforts are changing lives. So on this, I think is asking about some figures, some key right cases of what's happening. So Topista, as you talk about it, you can share on that, and then for the how the lives are changing, we'll go back to Joel a bit to share how changing, how they are changing the lives of people, as well as back to Lucy, and then we will then go to the question of how the men and the boys are active. But first, Topista to go to those three questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, and thank you, listeners, for the questions. So as I mentioned earlier, the way the settlement system is organized is that we don't work in a silo, we work in partnership. So we have legal officers working. SEPA doesn't have a legal officer, but we have legal officer with DRC, we have legal officer with IRC, we have legal officer with ULS and within UNHCR. So when we organize such an activity of mobile court sessions, then we liaise with the legal officers in these respective partners, and then we work together and bring the legal officers from the government court system to the settlement to hear cases and provide legal services, what you're calling legal clinics. So we do not have a legal component in our operations as separate, but we do provide the support and work with other partners to ensure that legal services are brought closer to the community. And then how do you keep the confidentiality of survivors? As I mentioned earlier, our response is survivor-centered. And one of the key aspects of GBV is, confidentiality, keeping the information or the details of a survivor as a secret. So we ensure that survivors, first of all, we have a women's safe space. And then we have also certain women leaders within the community that can be trusted. And so the survivors have those women to report to, or the women's safe space within the settlement where they can report, because they will have safe space attendants and facilitators that are always there during the daytime, and the women can come. We have rooms there where they can be able to give their stories or their deals to that person in secrecy without anyone knowing. And this is kept very confidential. And as the case is being handled, it's also kept very confidential. In the event we need witnesses or we need the community leaders have also been trained on case management about confidentiality. So they are aware of that. And so sometimes when even we want to meet with the women, we don't call them directly. We find ways of meeting them so that they are not exposed to the community and to reduce on the stigma, because one of the challenges of reporting is that people fear the stigma when they report such cases. And then how is our interventions changing lives? I can tell you many of the women now can speak for themselves. We have in the refugee settlements, we have women who are participating and running for positions alongside men, and they have been very successful. We have RWC2, who is a woman in one of the settlements. And if I speak even for Changwali, we have a woman who is the RWC3, like the LC3 chairperson of the settlement. That is the equivalent of the position. But besides that, we have seen women who have transformed their families, and they have also defended their children, especially the girl child, not to get married against the cultural and traditional practice. They have fought for their girl child not to get married. And so we see a number of girls who have gone to school and they are pursuing their career. And then we see women participating in economic development, like doing business, small businesses where they're able to make money. And also communities now accepting for women to access land. Initially, women were not allowed to have land, whether at their marriage homes or their family homes. They were not given land. But now families are beginning to allocate land. As they allocate land for their sons, they also allocate land for their daughters as well. So those are some of the transformations that we are seeing. However, we still have a lot more to do. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much for that. And then, of course, Joel, you talked a lot about the a bit of the main engagement strategies, and of course, you will respond, and then in like a minute or two, and then we will go back to Lucy. They are asking, how do you encourage men to actively participate in efforts to end gender-based violence, and which strategies have proven effective in changing harmful attitudes? Are there examples of initiatives that promote positive masculinity or changing toxic behavior? And I saw you, Joel, and then Lucy can follow up with you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lawrence. I will provide a general overview as a response to the question. We are involving men. I think I remember I talked about the methodology that we are using with CARE International Uganda through the Dreams Project. Actually, yeah, I'll bring a specific example of the initiatives that we are doing with the CARE International Uganda, where we are using gender transformative approaches to ensure its success. The way we are doing this stems right from the Secretariat itself. I'll keep going back to the Secretariat because it is where the work starts from. You will realize that we've been able to train our staff in the gender education and diversity, not just for their learning, but also to implement as they carry out the activities under the DREAMS project. We are also encouraging the staff that as they profile the women groups and identify the potential beneficiaries of the DREAMS project, they should be able to document cases of GBV and refer them to institutions that have the capacity to handle such cases. So we are also mapping those institutions that are into the close proximity of our project implementation areas, so that as soon as we identify such cases, we are able to address them, not us directly, because we may lack the technical capacity, some of us, but to refer to them, to those who are able to handle such cases, or the trained personnel. We realize that we are starting right from the rural woman to benefit to the urban hustler, to the high-end businesswoman, to benefit from the DREAMS project. How? By getting the business development services, the tailored trainings, so that we tell them that it does not end at the trainings, but they are ready, or to prepare them to be ready to tap into the government programs like the parish development model, like the GROW, the GROW project and the Ministry of Gender and the other financial institutions. So we are opening up to these ladies that indeed there are opportunities. As soon as you get these trainings, there are opportunities that you can be linked to, and indeed you move economically, or you benefit economically through accessing affordable credit, and also knowing their rights as women. We have trainings with Uganda Registration Services Bureau, and these trainings are geared to sensitize women about using movable property to access loans, and also linking them to registered money lenders who are supposed to be operating within the law, so that the women do not get cheated. Like I said, we've registered, for example, an example for the ISOCO project, that the digital marketing platform. We have so many women that accessed the services of ISOCO and were able to start exporting their products as beneficiaries. We've not yet quantified the amount of the money that they are getting, but as we move on and as we do our monitoring and evaluation, we shall be able to be publishing such information in newsletters. Yes, are we still together?
No, yeah, I was saying thank you. So I'd like to throw it over to Lucy to respond a part of their work and what they are doing in terms of encouraging men and changing harmful attitudes. And then there is also a question of whether they are role models who are also perpetrators. And then there is a question on impunity, so that we can see how to close as time is not on our side. Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, thank you so much, Lawrence, and for the questions. So apart from being punitive, so we have what we call restorative justice, and one of the things that we do, and these are for really civil cases, because much as we can promote reconciliation in the community, but cases that are criminal must first go through the justice process so that the survivors get justice. But yes, we do that under the restorative justice program that we have in the communities. And then how do we involve the men? We have what we call the gender sensitive men. So they have a movement built in the communities we're working with, across the different districts. And what they do is they go and reach out to the other men, to challenge some of the harmful practices that we're mentioning. So we're using the, get a thief to catch a thief. kind of model to reach out. But also the toll-free helpline that I mentioned does not discriminate who calls. So when they call, we have partners who work specifically with men. We refer the cases to them to support in the process of the violence that they are experiencing. So those are some of the safe spaces we have for the men who are victims, or how we do the reconciliations. Thank you. Over.
Okay, then thank you very much. I would like to take this to appreciate everyone. And then, of course, we would like to apologize on behalf of Hadija. She had challenges with the network, and should not be able to continue being with us. But we take this time to appreciate everyone from who have joined us, partners, friends who were able to know and hear about this session and were able to join us. Yes, of course, we've seen some people asking to look at the presentation to see how to send them over on email and see how you can get to them. Then I would also like on this regard now to invite Alice to make final remarks from the WUSC side, and then we'll then see how to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Once again, a warm good evening, good morning, and good afternoon from WUSC Uganda. We take this opportunity to thank you all for participating and for all your contribution to make this discussion a success. Much as we've had time to showcase the work that our partners are doing to end violence, I just want to re-echo that this discussion was good, but it's definitely not enough. So we will continue. The discussion will continue. We are going to post this recording on all our partner platforms and also the WUSC space. So we will be able to continue with the discussions. So if you still have questions, you have comments, please feel free to ensure that you follow these channels as we will continue with the discussions. So as we come to a conclusion, like I mentioned before, we work with about 14 partners who are doing different work in line with ending gender-based violence. So I encourage all of you to have time to follow partners and see and also reach out to their offices for those who can, to get to know more about the work that they are doing in line with ending violence against women and girls. But as WUSC, we will continue to provide the technical support that we've always done to ensure that our partners have the capacity to adequately fight and eliminate violence against women and girls. So big thank you to all of you. Do have yourselves a very great weekend.
Alice, there was a question that is posted in the chat box to you about how someone becomes a new partner. I don't know if you could respond to this before we close the session.
Okay, thank you. It may be a little bit big for me to respond on that now. Unfortunately, up to the close of the meeting, Rosa has been unable to join through. Like I said, the selection of our partners is in line with the work that the partners are doing that relate to the thematic focus of Ignite. And amongst them, gender is the core of the work that we do. So our work focuses on economic opportunities, environment, gender, and then durable solutions for the refugees. That's why when you look at the portfolio of our partners, we have partners that focus on economic opportunities. We have for instance, for this webinar, we gave mainly the opportunity to the women serving organizations that, focus their work on working with women. And then we have organizations that focus on environment. And then also we have refugee-led and refugee-focused organization to answer the aspect of durable solutions. But in all these aspects, gender remains the central focus of the work that we do. So in terms of partnership, unfortunately for now, we have closed the partnership window. But for those that are interested, you could email us and we can continue with the discussion after this webinar. So I will put in our email addresses in the chat, and then you should be able to follow up with more questions. But for this year, because our year starts on April 1st and ends on the 31st of March the following year. So meaning that for this year we are closed, and the partnerships are done usually at the beginning of every year. So for now, I would request that those who are interested, we could further the discussion after this webinar. You could start by sharing or getting to us by email. Thank you.
All right. Someone has posted a burning question. Even though we are already time, but is asking about the engagement of the men. But I think so many of these organizations in their presentations took time to talk about what they are doing with men and how they are attempting to contribute to ensuring that men are involved in these processes and to ensure that they do get the same messages that the women get for purposes of ensuring that we end gender-based violence. I think quite a lot has been shared on that. So on this regard, like we promised, we are going to see how to compress possibly and share the presentations on the emails that were provided in the registration. So on this part, I would like to thank everyone in a special way. Thank WUSC, that brings us together as panelists, and then still in the same breath, thank all the panelists who have been able to take time in preparation for this webinar, and of course do thank everyone who took their time to join this webinar and listening to what they have to offer. I do wish those whose day is still beginning the best of the day, and wish that you can. Yes, I see Alice has. Sorry, she had raised the hand. I thought she had something to say. Yes, I think Alice has something to say. Let me allow her to say something and then close. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Lawrence. I just wanted to make a little bit clarification on the work that WUSC does. Worldwide, okay, sorry, not worldwide, but in Uganda, WUSC has been a little bit misunderstood as an organization that offers scholarships for people who want to study in Canada and so on. But unfortunately, that is not what we do. The scholarship that is offered is mainly under the Student Refugee Program, which is a program that is different from the IGNITE project, but it basically targets refugees, and these refugees are in the refugee settlements. And there is a whole lot of criteria that is done to have these refugees selected, the ones who can benefit. So if you have anyone that you know in the settlements who is looking for a scholarship, for now, that person should be a refugee and residing in either of the refugee settlements. And this project is particularly handled by Window International. I'm talking about the Student Refugee Program. So For the Ugandan nationals, unfortunately, WUSC Uganda does not do anything around with offering scholarships or education opportunities to Canada. The work that we basically do under the IGNITE project is technical capacity building for partners through the work of volunteers. And under the agency project that is in Moyo, we are doing more of supporting education for the girl child in the refugee settlements, where we still work with Window and Aga Khan Foundation. And here we are doing more of skills training and also empowerment to ensure that these refugee girls still go back to school and have access to education. So we also still do not do direct scholarships to education. Thank you. That's the little clarification I wanted to make.
Okay, then, thank you, everyone. I would like to wish everyone all the best, and I thank you, everyone, and let's continue. Like the first comments were done as we were by mail. Gender-based violence cannot end in one day, cannot only end in these days alone, in the 16 days. Let us continue doing whatever work at individual basis, as groups, and as networks, to ensure that we end the gender-based violence. I wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.